Well, then you
Oh, 1%.
Yeah.
But now only applies to 10%. If Congress did that, they Biden's got a.
All right, let's get this meeting in order. Here we go. We're going to call this meeting to order. All right, let's all stand in the leaders in the pledge, please.
Now,
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to take a moment of silent reflection. I think it's kind of time with everything that's going on. We'll start. Everybody. We're going to start with the roll call here with the board members, and then we'll go remote. So we'll start all the way down there. Mr. Barlow.
Here.
Pete Harris here.
Charlie Frey, Churchill County here.
Woody Worthington here. Sir.
Jim Snyder, Lyon County Row Crops.
Dwayne Coombs, Lander and Elko County range.
All right, let's go Vegas.
Paul Noel, Clark County, representing the. Dave Coon, Clark County, representing the dairy industry.
Bernard Peterson, White Pine County range.
Is there Valerie there?
No.
Is there anybody in Elko? Perfect. See there. All right, we're gonna, and then we're gonna go to the, we're gonna start here in Reno with the Department of.
Jennifer Rott, Director. Amber Smeyer, Administrative Services.
Romano Shupur, Administrator for Food and Nutrition Division.
Hayden Smith, Administrator for the Division of Measurement Standards.
Any staff remote?
Jerry Conrad, Deputy Director for the Nevada Department of Agriculture.
Garrett Russell, Public Information Officer for the Nevada Department of Agriculture.
Dr. Mitchell, introduce yourself.
Sorry, mute button. Amy Mitchell, State Veterinarian at Department of Agriculture.
Thanks, Amy. Anybody in the Vegas office?
No.
All right, perfect. You get all that in?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, we're gonna move to public comment. Any public comment? Here in Reno. Any public comment remotely? All right, hearing no public comment, we're going to go ahead and close it. We're going to move to minutes. Board, please take a look at the minutes from last time, and that is an action item. So take a look and see if there's any corrections or anything that we need to do.
Mr. Chairman, I approve, or I would recommend that we approve.
All right, we have a first for a motion to approve the minutes as they are. Is there a second?
Second, go ahead.
Did you get that in? Yeah. All right, so we have a first and a second. Any discussion? All right, no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. All right, the meeting minutes have been approved as of on March 9th, 2022. I have a agenda item change. So there'll have to be a motion for USDA rural development isn't here. So I need to take that away on item number 4. And then I'd like to move number 7 up. That is the letter of support of Western Heritage. So we need to get a motion on that. Change.
I'll make a motion to change it.
Thank you, Pete. Did you get that? There's a motion to change the agenda as it is.
I second.
Awesome. Thank you. We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. It's so moved. So we're striking number 4 and moving 7 up to 4. All right, letter of support of Western Heritage. We had Western Heritage come in and talk about their phases the last board meeting. There was some discussion in regards to supporting or drafting a letter to support the Western Heritage Project. So what do you guys think on that? I'll open it up for board discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I apologize, I wasn't at the last meeting. Would you just give me like a 30-second synopsis of what we're doing?
Perfect, Mike. Your floor is yours. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. For the record, I'm gonna sit like I'm a kid again. For the record, my name is Mike Corbin, and I'm serving as the treasurer of the Nevada Western Heritage Center Alliance. This is a group that's born out of the project started by the Reno Rodeo Association to rehabilitate and revitalize the fairgrounds, as we refer to them. Where we're at in 2019, we received $1 million from the state legislature to do some planning. Reno Rodeo matched that dollar for dollar. And we're at the 30% design stage of the project, and we've conceived of a plan to completely rehabilitate and revitalize the grounds. Where we're at right now, that plan includes a parking garage, a new outdoor arena, and the refurbishing of the existing indoor arena, building a complementary second indoor arena that would be used for additional larger events, and replacing the exhibit hall that we tore down. We have that is phase 1, the rehabilitation of the existing facility, the creation of a new indoor arena complementary, and the exhibit hall is phase 1. And that's what we're here trying to generate support for. The chairman of our board is Perry DiLoretto, and we're currently working through the process to gain community support. We've got resolutions from the city of Reno, city of Sparks, and Washoe County is drafting, I believe, and we would certainly appreciate your support. Part of the complications of the project is the state owns the property. It's on the Department of Agriculture inventory, leased to the county, Washoe County, in 1951, and managed by the Convention Authority. So we're working on that governance structure also, but any support we can get for the moving forward with the project is greatly appreciated.
You bet.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question,
Yes.
So you need our support. So what I'm asking is, are you working with state lands to acquire the property? You're going to leave it where it's at? What's your?
That concept's in its infancy. One of the things talked about is creating a airport authority-like entity that manages, such as the Reno Airport, that manages the property. So we're not at any concrete decision on how we would like to move forward, But we think that governance structure is kind of complicating things for people who want to make a big investment in something that structure is kind of probably makes people look twice. So we're trying to make sure we've got something in place that managed by somebody that really cares, and we'll move it into the future and take care of it and promote it. Reno Rodeo is a $50 million economic impact in the city. Hope to see you in the next couple of weeks. But we think if we can replicate that several times a year with a robust facility, then we'll be doing some good for Northern Nevada and the community.
What would it mean for the department to offer this letter of support? Are there any obligations or expectations that go with that?
The board basically would submit a letter, like a resolution to support the project. Basically, there would be no, I don't think, I mean, it's up to you guys, what you guys think.
I mean, it all depends on the ask. That's why I asked that question to start with. If you're going to the state lands to acquire the property and put an authority together to manage it, then our resolution needs to reflect that. Or if you just want our support, then the resolution needs to just reflect that support of go ahead, proceed the way you're going.
I think that's where we're at. I think
that's
where we're at this stage is just support for where we're going, what we're conceiving, and how we're moving forward. We'll have a more concrete plan on the structure, the governance structure. That's all going to have to be legislatively done. So we will have something. I don't know whether we'll be that far along this legislative session, but right now we're looking for money to move past that 30% stage and get going on that phase one. So and as construction costs are increasing every day, that's a challenge. But we're hoping to get into some of that COVID money and that kind of stuff. So.
You're not asking the board for any additional money, are you? Just for our support for the expansion?
Correct. Okay. At this point, yes. At this
I
point.
I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and authorize and issue a letter of support for this project.
Thank you.
I second that.
There's a first and a second. Any more discussion remotely?
Can I just throw in, Mr. Chair, it's been a while since I've been associated with Reno Rodeo, and but this facility is such a unique, cool part of our heritage that I think that and is needed. This is something that's been needed for at least 10 years. I know the Reno Rodeo Association was talking about this 10 or 15 years ago, revitalizing the old fairgrounds, and what a great way to promote our ag in this state, and so just want to throw that in. I think this is great.
Thank you.
Kudos for pushing us forward.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Perfect. So we had a first and a second to write a letter of support. And discussion is closed. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. So
thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, board updates. We're moving to agenda item number 5. We're going to start here in Reno and then work our way around remotely. So, Mr. Garland, your updates.
Well, I've been working on the RS-2477 project, and then we've also been working on the DMAR and the Cattlemen's Association on the redoing the districts and the brands. And we're not quite there yet. The RS-2477 thing we've been working on is probably going to have to go to Congress to be fixed, which would make have a huge impact for rural counties and our livestock industries. Because so the way it is now, our roads, the counties have to go to the federal government and prove that the roads belong to them before they can get a title to it. And the bill that we're trying to get through Congress would change that, and put the onus on the BLM to prove that it wasn't there before 1976, before Flintman. So where I'm getting with this is if you go to get federal funding for flat or whatever different funding it is to work on your county roads, if you don't have a title to that road, they won't even look at you. And so we've been pushing real hard to get title to our roads. And that's been the intent of it, because they won't recognize the county as those right of ways. And they're a right of way, the difference between a right of way and an easement, they want to look at them as an easement that belongs to us and we just let you use it. Well, the right of way states, if it's a right of way, it's, I have the right, that's my right of way, it's a right. It doesn't belong to the federal government anymore. And so that's been the battle. And so that's the two things I've been working on.
A question. Is DeMar Dahl been working with you a lot on this?
Yes, especially
He's called me also.
has he, on
And
the district.
yeah, we've been discussing it.
All right.
And I think that's really important. So, thank you.
Good to go, thank you. All right, Pete Pierce, what do you got?
The sheep business right now is, prices are quite stable. Got a lot of issues in our side of the state, and I hear most of the places, severe drought, hauling a lot of water, can't get water to the areas that the sheep need the water in. And our labor problems just seem to keep escalating with the way the people are crossing the border. They've got a system now where they use our plan. We have an organization that we bring them in totally legally, bring in all the documents, all the visas, everything. They jump in, apply for that program, come in. That way they don't even have to walk across the border or do anything. They get on this side of the border. They get off the airport in Los Angeles instead of Reno or Elko or Twin Falls or whatever airport that their job place is at, and just leave. The sheep producers spending anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 between plane tickets, visas, cost of paperwork, all that stuff, and it's totally gone. It's getting to be a huge problem. If something is not fixed, will probably ruin not just Nevada sheep industry, but the United States sheep, the Western marine sheep industries. It's gotten totally out of hand. There's a few predator problems, like always. I guess other than that, life is good.
Okay, Charlie Frey, I represent Churchill County, and the growers in Churchill County mainly have alfalfa, other crops, and green crops. And our area is really short on water. TCID, Truckee Carson Irrigation District, has allocated or said that the farmers will get 70% of their water. That's skeptical to me, but because just looking at the reservoirs, there's not that much water. But apparently there's a big amount of water coming in from the south, mainly the Mona Lake area, or the ski resorts and everything have an abundance of snow. And so they are anticipating a large runoff. And of course, we don't know exactly what that's going to be. So some of the farmers have been optimistic and thinking that TCID may even increase that 70% allotment. However, those farmers are very conservative, have chosen to keep some of their land fallow this year because of the lack of water. And so we're just hoping that, and praying that we can get more water, even more water than 70% or at least 70%. And I think that's mainly our concern in Churchill County.
Thank you, appreciate that, Charlie. Let's see, General Ag, Woody Worthington for the record. Douglas County, we're knocking down our alfalfa first cut. We're excited about that. Not excited on the fertilizer cost, not excited about the fuel cost. It's going to be rather interesting this year to make it work. The employment issue has been rather interesting as well with those the farmers there, but optimistic that it should turn around. Water is an issue, so that's a big thing, especially in Douglas County. We're having a lot of meetings and which eventually we'll get it figured out. But besides that, everything else is business as usual for us. Thank you, guys.
So in Lyon County, it's been a bit of a tough spring with wind and cold, and some of the onion crops and vegetable crops have blown out, been replanted, weeds are taken over in spots, but otherwise things are great. Very dry. We'd love to have a 70% water allocation. Ours is less. I would like to hear any ideas. Our irrigation district heard a presentation yesterday, 2 presentations about cloud seeding. And I would love to get ideas or something moving for funding for cloud seeding. If anybody has any ideas how to pursue that. I think that could be helpful for not only our district, but the whole Western Nevada area here. And I think that's about it. Yeah.
Dwayne Coombs, we ranch, I actually live in Lander County in Battle Mountain, but we ranch out in Elko County and east of Wells. Kind of some of the things that have been on our mind and folks that I've talked to. I know that we visited with about this a little bit earlier on, is I think there's a lot of, and this is one of the deals that worries me about our brand, kind of where our brand department sits and how this is going to roll out, is right there at the ranch. I-80 splits our summer country from our winter country. And I just watch cattle pots go by day after day after day. And I actually had there was a fellow that was hauling hogs that had a blowout there, and I stopped to visit with him the other day, or this has been last fall, and he says, hey, if you ever need cows hauled out of here, he says, it's a nonstop from here to Nebraska. Just call me on my way back, give me a phone number, we can load them, and they'll be there in 10 hours. Eastern Nebraska has no brand laws. I have been working closely with our, I don't know what our animal enforcement office, what's the right term for them? I call them the cow cop, and that probably doesn't go over very well with them.
Agriculture police.
Agriculture police officers, and rumor was that Dalton had a truck at the DOT stop at some point that had a load of cattle coming from eastern Colorado to California with no paperwork. Absolutely nothing on these cows, and you know, that kind of stuff. I appreciate those guys being out there. I know that they take a lot of hits. I you know, and some of the guys that truck really cuss those guys, but you know what, somebody's got to be there I appreciate them doing that more than stopping folks coming to the Snaffle Big Fish early or something, that's where and that's something that's a worry to me is, I think there's a lot of our business, we make it on about a 2.5% margin. And if we're losing 1% of our cows to theft, it cuts into to what we get used to send the kids to college. So there's that, and so that's an ongoing thing. I appreciate those guys that are out there every day, our brand inspectors. I mean, they were really putting a lot of pressure on these livestock, these enforcement officers, and the actual folks that are doing the brand inspections, and how we support them in this process of trying to revamp that is really important. The other thing that Director Ott and I visited about this a little bit. In the past, we've done a lot of work with Farm Bill and using EQIP, these Farm Bill programs to help rural ag. And I was shocked to hear that I believe last year Nevada NRCS sent over $1 million back. Farm Bill dollars went back to NRCS National, Washington, D.C. There's been some language put in through Sagegrass Initiative and through Working Lands for Wildlife that allows those Farm Bill dollars to be used on public lands through an authorized permittee. But it doesn't seem like that's getting down on the ground, because I specifically have heard several times that we can't use EQIP dollars on public lands, and that's absolutely false. And this is coming, so this is something, and I've had conversations with Congressman Amodei about this, with Ken, what's up, Congressman Amodei's, Ken Brooks, about this, as well as Senator Cortez Masto. This is unacceptable. Those dollars need to be put on, if they're not going to go on private land, we need to put them on public land, onto these allotments that definitely need range improvements done. Heck, road improvements. Let's put it into road improvements for G's, so we can actually access for fire, things like that. So anyway, that's probably more than you bargained for me. So I will stop.
You're good. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Good to hear.
So do we have Vegas online? Board update?
Yes, Paul Noel, representing a nursery industry. We have
Can you
run
guys hear?
into a few problems with of course, with the water issue.
Hold on one second here. Hold on one second. We can barely hear you.
Try to move closer to that phone and hit *6 to unmute the phone. I think just the room microphone is trying to pick you up and it's not loud enough.
Can you hear me better now?
Oh, perfect. Yes.
All right. Paul Noel, representing the nursery industry. Well, we've run into basically the same problems with not quite as other agencies have, but we do have the fuel prices rising pretty much every day. Makes it very difficult for us to sell material to customers without raising the prices. And we can't very well do that on a daily basis, obviously. And so we have that problem ongoing with that, and also looking at the future water issues that are going to start curtailing the amount of water that we can use in our facilities as well. But those are the two major problems that we have to look at. Everything else, though, as far as our industry, it seems to be holding its head above water. We have been doing a lot better than a lot of other departments are doing. We understand it's a lot of the customer demand is still up in our area, but we have a lot of cost increases coming our way as well.
Dave Kuhn, dairy industry, and continue to be challenged with the same things that have been identified so far this morning, and just generally economic instability as far as knowing where we're heading. We can say that the retail sales have remained strong. Food service, restaurants, and those types of outlets for dairy products are coming back. And perhaps specific to Nevada and our region, we're grateful that the resort industry is rebounding a little bit. We have continued increases in expenses, fuel, resin, the resin being a big part of our product cost. Resin is what goes into the making of the containers. The consumer still trusts the value and the necessity for dairy products. They trust the nutritional benefits that milk and dairy products provide. Our producers, we continue to be grateful to them for their hard work and what they fight through. And a lot of attention has been given to the lack of water in the western United States especially, and that definitely has an impact on our milk producers. From a processing and distribution side, and also on part of the consumers, we continue to be grateful for the oversight. We don't know if there's a more scrutinized industry in the food business than milk and dairy products, and rightfully so. And we're particularly grateful for the concern and the experience and the capability of our inspectors within the state that keep not only us, but the industry headed in the right direction. We just have not had those issues that would detract from the confidence in the product. So we're grateful to the state, and I know that other states have their agencies, but we know the good that our state does. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members that I might have missed? There's a lot of names out there. Bernard, yeah.
Yeah, so this is Bernard Peterson, White Pine County, similar range beef production. As everybody has stated, Eastern Nevada still remains under extreme drought conditions with very little precipitation, zero snow. Range conditions out on the allotments are very poor. I don't know of anywhere in my district where there would be valley floors that would be able to sustain any livestock at this point. I see some turned out, but conditions are so poor, it would be creating a rangeland health problem if there are livestock turned out. So inflationary costs of production, all of which include fuel and freight and fertilizer and protein and supplements and pivot tires and vehicle tires and parts and materials and PVC pipe and all the things that we as producers use in operations. There isn't, I don't know of a single item that hasn't had a significant price increase, which is impacting the bottom line in every single operation. When with that said, commodity pricing is being a laggard to production costs. And so it sounds really good that we got $340 or $50 hay out here in Eastern Nevada, alfalfa, but you can't feed $350 hay to a beef cow. So it's going to be quite detrimental to most operations, I think. The beef market seems to be holding its own. It's not really reflecting the inflated costs of inputs, but it's holding its own in this area and east of here. In the last 7 days, the sheep market in our area and east of here is collapsing so fast that I noticed Pete said it was kind of holding its own, but I've spoken to the Idaho and Colorado and Montana guys in the last 24 hours. And, we've lost $150 to $200 per hundredweight on lambs in a week. And so the drought is going to create a situation where buyers and feeders are going to prey off of producers, and until we work through it, it's going to be pretty catastrophic. But so anyways, that's what we have in our area. It's pretty grim right now.
Thank you, sir. All right, thank you, board, for the update. Hopefully we get some better news. I guess it is what it is, right, at this point. So we're going to move to agenda item number, let's see, we went to 6. Yeah, Board of Agriculture membership changes. And then we're going to ask Richard Gain to support us on that one. And it's just for discussion only. So Board of Agriculture membership change. You got? Okay, go ahead.
Also, can you hear me okay?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, great. Good morning, members of the board, chairman, NDA staff, members of the public. As a result of the 2021 legislative session, SB 54, which becomes effective on July the 1st, 2022. Some changes have been made, as you all know. The existing law consists of 11 members and sets forth the qualifications. As of July the 1st, that increases the membership to 13. And previously, 6 members were required to make up a quorum, and now 7 members are. In a nutshell, it retires one of the general farming positions and one of the semi-range cattle positions, and adds 3 positions. One which is a supplemental nutrition distribution, one in food manufacturing or animal processing, and a veterinarian position. The NDA is still charged with keeping minutes. And why don't I just go ahead and read the new qualifications and membership makeup. 2 members who are actively engaged in range or semi-range cattle production. 1 member who is actively engaged in dairy production. 1 member who is actively engaged in range or semi-range sheep production. 1 in general agriculture. 2 engaged in growing crops, at least 1 which is a specialty crop. And just to note, there's a change in the language there. Previously, one of those positions required that it be in growing crops which are planted in rows spaced to permit mechanical cultivation. That part has been axed. 1 engaged in the control of pests, 1 in the petroleum industry, 1 in the raising of nursery stock. And the 3 new positions are the supplemental nutrition distribution, and like I said earlier, the food manufacturing or animal processing, and 1 with veterinary experience. As a practical matter, the bill also, it doesn't affect the current term of any person who on June 30th of 2022 is still a member of the State Board of Agriculture. And on or before July the 1st, the governor will appoint the new members along with any members or any vacancies in any positions. So there's a website from the governor's office if you are interested in resubmitting an application or proposing that somebody take on a vacancy. I'm available to take any questions.
It's getting bigger.
More coffee.
More coffee, more donuts.
There you go.
Hey, Richard, thank you very much. I appreciate it. We kind of saw the language, but it makes sense now. Thank you.
All right, for sure. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, we're moving into the item number 8, Director's Report. Jennifer.
Thank you. Good morning, all. Jennifer Ott, Director of the Department of Agriculture. You have your board report, my board report in front of you. But I'm going to just highlight a few items. The items that mainly I'm going to highlight are funding items. The prior board meeting in March, many of these items they were in the works, but they hadn't gotten final approval from the interim finance committee. And now the majority of the items have received approval, and so we're able to move forward. The first couple of items are items that have been requested by industry or members of the public. And I've been working with our federal delegation and federal agencies, predominantly USDA, on these items. We were awarded this year an additional $100,000 for the support, treatment, and survey of Mormon crickets and grasshoppers. We did request $400,000, but we were only able to get 100 this year, which was actually fine because of when the federal budget was signed. We wouldn't, it's getting towards the end of the season anyway. So we were able to receive that, and we're continuing to work with USDA to have at least $400,000 added to the department every single year for the support of the treatment and surveys of crickets and grasshoppers. Specialty crop block language. This would potentially be a farm bill project as well. We, unlike other states, let me back up. The way that specialty crop funding is allocated is by the numbers of farms in the state. And so that is really predicated on the NASS data that is received through the agriculture census every 4 years. Because we have less producers than many states, we get less funding than other states. So as you can tell, it's a vicious cycle. We can't grow because we continue to get shortage. So we're asking for those states that receive less than $1 million in funding, that the USDA supports a position for that program so that we can begin to grow that program and receive more funding and hopefully reduce and sort of reverse the vicious cycle that we're on now. So that is one of the areas that we're looking at on federal work. We did receive when the federal budget was signed, $500,000 of an appropriation request through the community fund projects supported by our federal delegation for a person to manage projects on the Virginia Range horses and to erect fencing to protect public safety in and around the Virginia Range. So we did receive that as the federal budget was signed. And we're continuing, as Board Member Coombs mentioned, to support funding on our rangelands as well, not just on conservation dollars, but also weed treatment and reseeding efforts, especially post-fire. So those are the projects that we're working on and have been funded on. I will skip down to the American Rescue Plan Act. The department has received funding through the governor's office and approved by the legislature for several projects for the department. The first one, and this is just really, I'm super excited about this. I can't even tell you how, the fact that the department can run this project is really exciting, but we did receive $2 million that will be utilized to purchase Nevada grown products, both fruit and vegetable products and meat products. We will buy those products from Nevada producers, cost plus a premium for being local, and be able to then support and provide those products to the food bank in Northern Nevada and the food bank in Southern Nevada. So we should be rolling that out here in the next month. And we've been working hard internally to get that program stood up. Also, another program is our state meat and poultry inspection program. We have funding now to hire a project manager and initial startup funding for that inspection program to develop a meat inspection program within the state so that we can have Nevada state inspected meat. And also education and changes in the regulations to support that program. We also had funding approved for food security initiatives. The first funding that was rolled out very recently at the beginning of May. It's on the next page here. These are the first entities and projects that we have funded through food security initiatives. And we have additional $9 million in funding that are going towards improving our food security network, including supporting rural areas and tribal communities, and supporting just the basics of the supply chain to get food moving better throughout the state. And so that is our food security initiatives that we're working on. And the final funding that was approved is a rebrand of our commodity supplemental food program, which will be our senior nutrition and wellness program. And this is a program that is federally funded, but it's called the Commodity Supplemental Food Program, which means nobody knows what that is. And so we received funding to be able to brand that so it's recognizable and that it will be, better adopted in the state of Nevada. And again, this is in a more effort to put more federal funds into the state for the support of our fellow Nevadans. When it comes to infrastructure funding, the Infrastructure Act, that funding is still working its way through the federal agencies, and we don't yet know how that will be implemented. So if there are ideas, please let me know. But we're still working through the funding and the mechanisms of how that will be utilized and available in the state of Nevada. Moving down to partner coordination, recently we initiated a meeting with our emergency food partners here in Northern Nevada, specifically for the preparation of wildfire season. Well, I guess it's a when, not an if, a when there's a catastrophic wildfire, then we are opening really those lines of communication with emergency management partners, with our food partners, to make sure that those that are evacuated know where to go and how to get services. So we've initiated those. The last, dropping down to executive, the last funding item that I want to cover is that the Department of Agriculture and the Governor's Office has initiated a plan through the American Rescue Plan Act to utilize those funds to provide universal school meals for students in Nevada for this upcoming school year. As you're aware, the waivers that allowed universal school meals did not pass through Congress this year, which would have left many of our school children in a world of hurt, really. And so we've been able to propose how to provide universal school meals in the state of Nevada using those funds. And those will be in front of the Interim Finance Committee on June 21st for final approval. If approved at the June 21st meeting, students in Nevada for the next school year will receive free school breakfast and free school lunch like they have been for the last 2 years. So we are the only state in the nation that is doing this. Other states have, I think there's about 4 or maybe 5 other states that are looking at universal school meals, but they are doing it through their budgeting process. All other states, you know, the kids are just, they have to figure it out, which is really unfortunate. So we're able to do that here. And then finally, I also just to tack on sort of what many of you have already said about staffing. The Department of Agriculture is not exempt from our staffing issues. We're still at about a 20% vacancy rate, as is the rest of the state, 25% vacancy at the state level. And so I just continued patience as we're providing services to the industries would be appreciated. So any questions for me on any of the report?
I do have a question on that Nevada State Meat and Poultry Inspection Program. Have you gotten any bites as far as someone coming in to take on that project?
We're all working on it.
I have one question. In the past, we've usually gotten information on our budget and where we stand financially. And I haven't seen it in the past few meetings. And I'm wondering if we can go ahead and the board can go ahead and start receiving that again, so we can take a look at where we are financially.
We can present that information.
It's similar to what you have done before, where we have the budget comparisons to actual.
Right, yeah.
Could we do that,
We can.
please? Thank you.
Any other questions for Director Ott?
Director Ott. I too asked about the state meat inspection program. I saw in the Elko paper recently that there's some folks looking at doing and Elko County was talking about moving some stuff. Is that part of it? Are they coordinating with you, or they, you know, that group? Are there conversations going on? I hope so.
There's conversations going on. Several groups who are either starting a plant or have are interested in expanding have contacted us. Through the USDA, there has been opportunities for funding directly to those entities. And we did write letters of support for those proposals that went for funding for that was available through USDA. I don't know, I don't believe that particular entity has contacted us or is working with us currently. I read the same article.
Okay.
I think the focus of the article was really about water rights.
Yes.
And so not necessarily about inspection, but we can certainly, you know, provide them with information about where we're at and, you know, what we're trying to do. We've held 2 meetings in conjunction with the Farm Bureau on the meat inspection program and to get some feedback and where the industry is, you know, where it's going, who's interested, sort of, you know, are we just doing this because we think this is a good idea? Is industry think this is a good idea? And we've got some great feedback. So, you know, yes, we're
okay.
If they want to contact us, we'd be happy to talk to them.
Okay, well, that's, you know, maybe how can we reach out to them at some level or some point? You know, I'd hate for them to get to the place where they fix their water right issue and then they think, oh crap, we're ready to go to business and well, we need an inspector.
Oh, right. and there's a lot of steps between then and there.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so currently, and what Chairman Worthington was referring to was that we have a position open right now for a project manager for that meat inspection internally here to the department, so that we're able to then, you know, that is the person that would really manage the program and get it off the ground, hire inspectors, work through the training, work through the USDA partnership, work through, you know, we have we've been asked for and think it was a great idea and as part of the program is, you know, presenting to local municipalities, counties to talk about, you know, what slaughter is and what it isn't. And to do a little education so that the permitting process is hopefully a little bit smoother than it has been in the past in some areas. So we're just waiting for that position to be filled and so that we can sort of hit the ground running. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But if there's specific questions or a specific entity that would like to chat, we'd be happy to.
Anybody online? Good job. All right, thank you very much for what you guys are doing. That sounds really awesome as far as allocation of monies and going to the school. That's pretty good. Good job for your team. We're gonna move to number 9, animal industry, Doug Ferris. Nope. Oh, Jennifer, sorry, I thought it was a mistype, so I tried to think ahead of it, apparently, it didn't work out, so. All right, yeah, so Jennifer, she's gonna be doing Doug Ferris's job, so go ahead.
Yes, today, Administrator Ferris is out of the office today on leave, and so I will cover his report. It's a lengthy report. I won't go through all the numbers. I'm just going to hit some of the highlights that the board has been interested in the past. The first, and just I wanted to cover a little bit of the update of the livestock inspection program. We have been working through that. We have our 30 state employee brand inspector positions filled. Which is a change from last board meeting. So all of those positions are filled. The full-time positions are not yet filled. We're still waiting through Central State HR on that to get those positions open so that we can fill, but we certainly have had interest in those positions, which we're really excited about. We continue to have up to 20 contracted inspectors in the field as well. And that way we are making sure that we're meeting the need, before all of our technology and the sort of organizational components are in place. So then that way we're not leaving anybody in the lurch. So that has been the update. For those of you who are really paying attention, the brand inspection program continues to go back to IFC for various budget changes. And really that is technical changes that have to do with how full-time and state employees are paid and from the budget they're paid from versus contract employees. And so as we were hiring, we kept have to rebalancing those categories. So for those of you that were looking at IFC and wondering why the brand inspection program is always listed, it's because we're constantly balancing our budget that way and having to make some changes depending on those positions and where they're located. Any questions on that before I move on?
Yes, are the new full-time positions, are those law enforcement?
They're not.
So they don't have to go through the academy?
They do not. No, only the ag police officers, and we only have 5 ag police officers in the state.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, sir.
Through you, Chair. So what I see there's there's inspectors 1, 2, and 3. How does that break down? I mean, what's their responsibilities?
Yeah, so the inspector 3 is the highest position, and that is the brand inspector that will be overseeing the entire program, doing brand inspections, but also making sure the brand inspectors time cards are on time, any HR issues, travel issues, complaints from industry,
More administrative.
More administrative, but also a brand inspector. I mean, it's important that they know and be out in the field as well. So that's the 3. The 2 are more regional to make sure that there's, leadership and supervision in the field. So those would be more regional. And then the ones are out every day doing work. But the full-time ones are also, the regional ones are also out doing work as well.
Where's the 3 located?
We don't know yet. It's not open, it hasn't been hired.
Any other questions on this specific?
Okay, The item that I wanted to hit of note as well on page 4 is the high path avian influenza. As we've seen in the news, that has continued to march across the United States and has had positive detections in Idaho and Utah. So we are surrounded. We continue to take samples and monitor. So far, we have not had any detections of avian influenza in the state. But we will certainly notify the public if that were to be the case. So just as an item of national interest, I wanted to update you on Nevada's status in that. I also wanted to update you specifically in the dairy program. We do have a microbiologist 4 position that has been filled in Sparks. She has begun and has gone through much of the training and proficiency testing as required by FDA. Board member Coons will know this, but we had previously been sending all of our samples out of state to be tested. Why this microbiologist was hired and getting up and trained and accredited through the FDA dairy program, and that occurs now. So we are running a lot of our samples now in state, which is great. And I think much a relief for the dairy industry. So wanted to provide that update as well. Any questions? Is there any other questions on this board or on this report? And if not, then I will pass it over to Dr. Mitchell for a presentation on TRIC.
Board have any questions? No?
All right, Dr. Mitchell, you're on.
Hello, can you hear me?
You can.
Excellent. Thank you for letting me speak on this real quick. Dr. Mitchell, for the record, from Division of Animal Industry, State Veterinarian. I just wanted to give you a broad overview of kind of where we are at right now in the TRIC season, as well as a little bit of a comparison for the past few years. If we can go to the next slide, please. So I wanted to focus a little bit. We've had some questions about the positivity rate about TRIC, and so we were able to pull some lab data for the past few years. This kind of highlights a little bit on the percentage numbers. So for the past few years, we've been hovering right around the 40% range. This represents the percentage of positive or suspect bulls that we have had in the state of Nevada on Nevada bulls, either from testing that was submitted to our lab or testing that we received from out-of-state labs that were tests done on Nevada cattle. So we've hovered right around 40% until last year, where we hit around 0.8%, where last year we hit around 0.41%. Not sure where that drop came from, although we did see obvious changes in testing patterns because of the drought. COVID also kind of affected a little bit of seasonal changes in veterinary availability. So those numbers are still kind of being monitored. We do have a percentage comparison. A lot of people ask, well, how many bulls are being tested? If we compare the numbers that we get for tests in those years to the bulls that are being reported through head tax, we may be testing around 40% of the bulls, but again, that's based on self-reported head tax, which is difficult to confirm. So we kind of focus on those positivity rates overall, which last year was 0.41%. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So I wanted to focus on the number of bulls. The reason being, if you just look at that positivity rate, it doesn't look that remarkable, right? Not even 1% of bulls are positive. The problem with TRIC, as most ranchers obviously will know, if you only have one bull in an infected herd, it can pretty much devastate your cow-calf crop that year. And so when we look at sheer numbers, especially in 2020, where we approached almost 70 positives in the state, even one positive bull, if you've got 4 neighbors, can potentially infect 4 separate herds. That's quite a few cows, and that's quite a few dollars when we look at calf crop that year. Last year, we were hovering again a little bit around 32, 34 positives. And so if we can go to the next slide, please, I'm going to elaborate on those numbers a little bit. So just kind of put this in real-time view for this season. For the season that we consider the current season, which would be from September 1 of last year to current, we have had 14 premises that were either infected or identified as exposed premises. Those ranches range from just one positive bull for the entire ranch up to more than 15 in one ranch. And some of these ranches are still under hold order and don't have all their testing done yet, so those numbers could still change. And then I wanted to compare it also just to when we talk about, one positive bull, what an impact that can have. In some cases, we had one ranch that may have had one positive bull, then expose 7 neighbors or 7 other ranches that may have run in a common allotment, and then all of their bulls. And in fact, in some of these situations where we had an exposed herd, and I went to call them obviously to discuss a hold order, they had actually already tested because they had more than 40% decrease in their calf crop this season. And it was this was their first infected year. So if you look at one infected bull potentially exposing 7 other premises, and then those premises experiencing a 40% calf crop loss, that's pretty devastating for the industry, obviously. And currently we have 5 premises that are still under hold order as of today. And I can tell you just from this year, if I look at January 1 to current, we've already had over 27 positive bulls, and that's not adding in the ones from from fall of last year. So this season looks to be on par with our previous positivity rates, which were upwards of 0.8%, but we'll remain to see how the fall season goes. But we're definitely seeing more exposed herds than we have in the past this year. And that is all I have. If there's any questions I can answer.
And I just would like to add on that, many of you know that the trick regulations are working its way through the process. There was a workshop held in late March on NAC changes for trick. It was significant, the feedback was significant that further workshops are needed to work through the feedback from the industry. And so there's a plan for in-person workshops in probably Elko for sure, hopefully Winnemucca, and we'll do a couple of others. All of those will have remote options, so folks and members of the industry can continue to attend. And we'll work through the regulation process. So we have a little bit of time. With this being an upcoming legislative year, we won't be able to move forward on the adoption of any regs for a while. So we've got some time to work through this.
Question, Mr. Chair. Maybe I'm just blowing hot air. I don't know. Just looking at these statistics and what's going on with trick, and then looking at all the petitions that have been put out there. It sounds like the biggest problem with doing trick tests is the cost of the tests. And if that's the case, I mean, I remember when I was younger, I'm gonna date myself here, that they actually, the state veterinarian actually did tests, on-range tests. They come out to where we had our livestock out on the desert, and we bled 300 head of cows in one day out in the middle of a crowd. I mean, it was not a fun process, but the state paid for all that. And so it was, but that was for bangs, because we had a bangs issue, brucellosis issue, then it was statewide issue, but the state helped fund that. But just and I look, that's from reading through these things here, it looks like to me that if the state would help with the costs some way of the trick tests, it might be a little better pill to swallow instead of now maybe we can't find, maybe in the legislature, one of them things we need to go to the legislature to get the funding to do it. But it looks like to me, it's getting to a critical point in the livestock industry. For cattle. I mean, if you got one bull exposed 7 different herds around you, that's not good, because it does it. They had a trick problem in Idaho when we had the ranch up there, and it was devastating. Because they have those grazing associations, and you got 15 different operators in one association. And one guy shows up with a bull, it's that next year, you wiped out a lot. It was to the tune of about 6,000 or 7,000 head of calves was cut right in half. So I know what trick could do. The mandatory trick test is probably a good thing, but it's a hard pill to swallow for the cost. It's like one of those unfunded mandates. You're requiring everybody to do it. I test my bulls all the time, but I only got 6 head of bulls, so it's not a big, huge chunk of change out of my pocket. But when you got 200 head of bulls to test, that's a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah, so tackling costs, I can just, as you're all aware, 2 years ago now is when we instituted pool testing, which has helped, reduce the cost, a bit. It's still a cost, but so in an effort to respond to that, but, as you're all aware, it still costs to do a test, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but if, we could help us forward a letter to the legislature, or help pay for some funding. Pay for some of the costs of the trick test. To just drop a mandatory, you're gonna do this or else, is a hard pill to swallow. Most of the ranchers are pretty damn independent. They don't like to be told it.
Any other questions specifically on tricks?
Can you give us a quick refresh on the cost? What the department spends and what the cost is to produce?
I don't have the COGS versus the, Dr. Mitchell, do you have the cost? We can provide that to the board after.
Yeah, we can get those numbers.
Thanks, Amy.
Go ahead, sorry.
I apologize. I was just going to speak, I don't know if it's needed, but speak to the cost as far as the disease testing. Things like brucellosis and TB are covered by USDA because those are federal programs. The USDA doesn't cover trick as a federal program, so that's a difference in.
That makes sense. That's why they had the funding there to go do it. Okay.
I'm just trying to think in the back of my head, it seemed like just the cost for the veterinarian was that we paid the veterinarian, other than, there's other associated costs with testing that is, it seems like $10 or $15 a head. I'm just grabbing that out of my, but one of the things that I know that we've talked about a little bit about with Director Ott was, we need to be careful don't create a law that's unenforceable, or regs that are unenforceable too. There's a lot of these, and I went through the list on those petitions, and there's a lot of those folks. I know a number of those people that are still, and our operation is the same way. We have our bulls turned out all the time. And so it's hard, last year, and we trick test everything we can get, but you know what, we don't trick test everything every year. If we were to have a positive, then yeah, we would go out and scramble around and find everything. But to come out with the reg that says you will do this, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a hardship on some of these producers, and so how do we set it up where, and our maybe, or our current regs, you know, we have a suite of current regulations. Is that a problem? Is what we're doing now a problem? Where people are voluntarily doing it and you actually, and I know that a lot of these guys like this one exposure that exposed 7 of his neighbors, I guarantee you that sucker's getting shamed at the coffee shop. I mean, you want to talk about.
Nobody's buying him any drinks.
Nobody's buying drinks. You know, because, and maybe that's the most effective way to deal with this is let these guys shame one another into taking care of their business. So I don't know, that's just blah, blah, blah.
Perfect, thank you. All right, any other comments or questions for Jeff? Thank you, Amy, I appreciate it. Before we move to line item number 10, plant health and compliance, we're gonna take a 15-minute break and then we'll return. Thank you, guys.
No.
All over there. He actually bought his own auto club. So he does his own beef issues. He can test about 50 at a time, I think. But he doesn't do it a little more. I think we pay $20 a bowl or $25 a bowl. Like I said, that's I got 5 of those. It's not a big deal. And that's got 200. And then an outfit that runs out year round. I don't know how you do it. Some of them desert goes down there. Can't even get close to where the horse. They couldn't really go. You shoot them like.
Well, maybe.
Okay, and then.
Somebody like that. One person?
And then the supervisor backs of that, and you have James look at that yet? For the sign off.
That's why it was funding. Always that's what it cost us to do the
For the safety officer.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Peter let out on Facebook. I went out on Facebook that his cell phone was almost blocked.
Yeah.
Sequel.
Well, it was in the film. It was, not that- it didn't make the cut, it made the cutting room floor. They had 2 votes. One was mine, one was the other one. And apparently, no, they got out of San Diego, because nobody never blows in San Diego. It's the worst place to sail ever. It's all right.
I don't know how you do it. You got some.
The
I think I
story
got
I
all
hear
balls up in the air.
is the cruise decided it wasn't fast enough in San Diego. So they came to San Francisco Bay, where it blows like that most of the time. And they had 2 identical boats. Well, I'm guessing that Cruz and Jennifer did a way better job on the other boat, but they filmed it on the boat, so I went out there on the floor. I'm hoping to get some pictures.
I was surprised.
Not bad to get that
There
close.
was advertising for that movie everywhere in your
County.
both Paris and in Barcelona. Like big signs in the metro and on the bus station.
In
bus
French, no
stops.
less.
No,
Turn it off.
People are dying to be entertained.
wow. I mean, yeah, there's a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet either, but.
No.
So there's a little sailing scene where it's just a trailer of the thing I've seen is that Jennifer wants to go sailing and there's someone, I don't know, apparently he's got to do something else, so Cruz volunteers. So he sits in the back of the boat, she drives. It was cool. So anyway.
It's good.
Yeah.
So you can put a plaque on it that says Tom Cruise sailed here.
Well, I don't know. There were people in my life that said,
Yeah.
these are two things you can't do.
No, I just go back to this. They got meetings.
See that it's giving you a volt or a watt.
Well, no, but use the tentative code to see if it's workable and to do time studies on how long inspections take and those kinds of things. And are there, you know, for our purposes, for our state's needs, are there components of the tentative code that will
I've never made my own Lamborghini,
and,
so I don't know
you
what.
know, either advocate for that to be changed when that becomes a permanent code or enact separately in our own regs.
What
Like
the
we
story
do for
was,
fuel
I guess.
safety, rather than adopting it.
Now, some of these
So what you're doing then is measuring
How you
the
doing,
output,
Mr. Dove?
just like you
Yeah,
do.
it's nice.
Correct. Yep, the energy sold, the energy delivered, the
Oh,
energy.
yeah.
Yep.
So really it's been-
And then right now, there's only one company that manufactures Prover, a test measure.
All right, let's get started.
So.
Oh, yeah,
we're-
there's a lot
we're
of
working
outfits.
with
Anybody
them.
outside?
Right now, they're coming off.
Where did it go then?
I was like, I don't know who made it.
You're having just a bad trip, nugget, bad coffee. Goodness sake. All right, we're gonna call this meeting back to order. We got everybody here. We're good, Amber? Good. All right, we're moving to agenda line item number 10, plant health and compliance. Ashley, go ahead.
Good morning. For the record, Ashley Jepson, the Division Administrator for Plant Health and Compliance. You guys have the board report in front of you, so I'm just going to provide some updates on anything that's changed since you got the report, and also just elaborate on a couple areas that I want you to have more information on. So on the first page under pending matters of significance, we've been very busy with NAC workshop and hearings. We've come a long way in the last year, which is really exciting. So I did mention during my last update that we were in the adoption process for our NAC 587. And I realize there is a typo here, but I wanted to provide some clarification. We did do some increases to our certification and inspection fees to address some of our audit issues with our cooperative agency, USDA, and to make sure that we're able to provide the increase in demand that we've had for export services. With that came along a new fee for the analysis of retail and wholesale seed. So this impacts nurseries or anybody else that's selling retail and wholesale seed. This would allow us to look for noxious invasive species, noxious weeds, look and see if there's some mislabeling information happening where you're not getting viable seed. It's going to allow us to fill that, provide some information to the nurseries on what trends we're seeing and help them to make informed decisions. But with that, there were so many different fee changes that happened within that regulation. There's been some questions on when those are going to be rolled out. They are in effect now, but we want to do that strategically, of course. So some of them where the season has closed will be clearly starting those at the start of the next season. But for the wholesale and resale seed, we're not going to roll out that fee until July 1st of 2023 because it will require a staff member. So obviously we don't want to start charging them until we can get staff on to provide the service. So just wanted to provide that clarification to the board. We did just hold 2 adoption hearings, one for NAC 552 for requiring apiaries to post signage so we can contact the owner. We've had a number of issues where we get reports on abandoned hives, which usually means they're diseased and they have some other issues. We can't get a hold of the owner. A lot of times the landowner is not the operator. So being able to streamline that contact process was our goal. And we held an adoption hearing on the 31st, and we'll be filing that for the Legislative Commission here in the near future. So hopefully we'll have a hearing in June or July. With that, we also just held an adoption hearing for NAC 554, and that had to pertain to the movement of firewood. It's a huge source of spreading invasive species. So mitigating the movement from quarantine areas where we know there's pests of significance to our state and to our forest lands, especially with drought and fire danger, it's something we really needed to be proactive on. Our regulations aligned with other states, very similar to Utah's. It helps prevent some of the bad players not dropping things in our state that are regulated in others as well. So same thing, we're hoping that we can get that with the Legislative Commission either this month for full adoption. Moving on to the next page. Under entomology, so page 2, I wanted to provide some updated numbers for our most recent treatment of Mormon crickets. We did do treatment in the Winnemucca area here in early June. We treated 56,000 acres, but that actually, it reported here in your report that it impacted and protected about 112 acres, but that number is actually 150,000 acres. We did have some delays in treatments in case you did hear about that. Some of that had to do with the environmental impact assessment that has to be completed before we can do that. There's a tight window sometimes with how those happen, getting the contractor secured for our aerial treatment and making sure it's before they have reached adulthood. Once they've reached adulthood, that treatment is not effective. But we were able to get out there with staff working on the weekend, working late, and that treatment was successful. So we're hopeful that this issue will be resolved in a delay in the next 2 years, since we have a 3-year EIS that will now be valid. So we're going to try to keep that rolling where we can, so it's not a hiccup in the future. I did miss one part that's a little bit earlier in your report. We started our allium field surveys for white rot. We did, I think it was our first inspection, have a positive detection in Gardnerville. So that field has been quarantined to make sure that that seed is not being spread and creating this issue further. I believe that's been our only detection thus far, and hopefully will be our only detection this season. But it goes to validate the work that our staff are doing and in walking all those rows and catching this critical pathogen. Moving to page 3, the very first bullet is talking about some of the education that our entomology team does. We reach out to the public very broadly, and I just wanted to expand a little bit on some of the citizen pest reports that have been particularly successful. So as one of our strategies, we want to make sure the public's aware of some of the critical pests that we're looking for. There are projects available where they can be engaged in helping with the survey work, and that's actually how a number of different pests throughout the country have been detected, or through just kids doing projects with the types of traps that we can put out. And we actually had a citizen pest report on the Egyptian locust, which was found in Las Vegas this year, which is something we're monitoring closely because it could have implications to our crops. So that's something we're going to be bolstering even more, the outreach and education and engagement with the public to help us with some of the survey work, because it's really an all hands on deck approach to get these things early and quickly. As we move into nursery, we mentioned that we have renewed 6 of our Colorado potato beetle compliance agreements, and I just wanted to elaborate on what that really means. We enter into a number of different compliance agreements on pests of particular concern for our nurseries. It means they have certain treatment protocols, they're only sourcing from areas of non-quarantine, and they're going through these inspections. So it streamlines that distribution to our state when they have these compliance agreements. We don't want to inhibit commerce, but we want to make sure we're keeping these pests out of areas of concern and we're able to move. So as we're seeing these compliance agreements, it's a good thing to keep things rolling, but to mitigate pest introduction. So just wanted to expand a little bit on that. I did mention during our last board update that we had over 300 trace forwards of citrus canker. So it was detected in North Carolina, and we had, I think that's a typo, we had nearly 400 plants that had entered the state. These were through online sales. That's a tough area to track, but we were able to track down to each individual homeowner. I believe there were about 10%, that were non-responsive, but we have to collect and dispose of all of those plants. I wanted to give a shout out to the nursery industry, because this nursery in particular, where the detection took place, they self-reported. They were doing monitoring in their nursery. They knew that it was going to shut down a lot of their movement, but they did the right thing in contacting their state and federal agency to track these products and get the issue addressed, because this particular pathogen is critical to citrus. It is definitely impactful in our southern Nevada. So kudos to the nursery team that worked on that and for self-reporting. Promise I'm getting there. On page 4, we received, I've mentioned this before, we received specialty crop grant funds to get one of our inspectors, or get two of our inspectors trained to enhance our terminal marketplace inspections. So the point there is to prevent rejections of crops that meet USDA criteria. So sometimes that does happen. The recipient feels it's not the quality they think it should be. But if they have that USDA certificate that shows it's been inspected, it prevents that rejection. Rejection, just for context, a lot of times means that product goes in the trash or goes for nearly a complete loss. So trying to protect the industry in that regard is something we've been trying to work towards. So with that, it requires extensive training, which is very costly. We got this grant to cover it, and we have had 2 of our staff are now credentialed in tomatoes and avocados and are nearly there in citrus. So we will be doing a lot of outreach to industry that we can now do this. This is what it means to you. And we're hopeful that will help with sales. Moving forward to, this is a good one, the very last bullet on page 4. NRS 555-120, it really helps us with our noxious weeds issues in the state. It allows a county to place a lien on a property if there's a non-responsive noxious weeds landowner to actually do the work and then place the lien to reimburse the cost. With that, the department reimburses out of our weed fund 75% of that cost until they can recover that cost. So sorry, that was not the most streamlined process of describing it, but it's really a means for the counties to take action when there's a non-responsive landowner to get the work done, to bill them, and it's a cooperative process with the Department of Ag. So we had our first request for reimbursement from Douglas County, but there were actually 2 separate ones. So seeing participation in that program is really exciting, and we continue to encourage other counties to do the same. The same thing as all our other pest issues, all hands on deck is really critical, and being able to handle some of these on a county level goes a long way. So kudos to Douglas County on taking that action, and we're hoping to see more. Okay.
One question. It's up to the county to go in and do the work on people that won't comply, or will
So-
not take care of the noxious weed?
That's a great question. For the record, Ashley Jepson. The state has the authority to absolutely take action to do the same process, but it is a lot easier when the county initiates it because they can place a lien on the property to get that cost reimbursed. So we have agreements with some counties that allow for that to happen. It is a more streamlined process. But in case your concern is, does the state have follow through on that? Yes, we do. But they're not to the level the county does. We can fine, we can treat and bill, but placing a lien certainly helps in getting that cost recovered. If that helps.
I'm just kind of a smart aleck comment or question. Does that mean that the counties could actually place a lien on some of the public lands in Nevada?
I like the way you think.
You know, because there are some unresolved noxious weed issues out in the outback.
Understood, and that actually segues very well into one of my next.
See, I knew
You and I were on line. So we understand there are a lot of noxious weed federal issues, and that's why we've really been trying to bolster our communications with our federal agencies. So on page 5, the second bullet is talking about our EDMAS reporting. So that reporting is a collaborative effort between state, federal, private citizens to report where they're finding noxious weeds. And there were 1,066 confirmed reports, which means there were already reports in the system that then were gone out and validated that, yeah, there's critical noxious weeds present here. And a lot of that participation was from state and federal land. So we're using that information to try to work with them to look at where some funds are to help with treatment. We do receive federal dollars and state dollars to help with that, and to identify, are there overlapping areas that we could target some of our noxious weeds funds on projects that would be impactful for multiple beneficiaries, would address some of the federal land issues that we can combine efforts on. So that's something we are trying to address. It's It's a team effort.
Oh, yeah. It's a big bite.
It is a big bite, but we're chipping away at it. So further expanding on some of our noxious weeds work, this is a little something different that we haven't done before. The largest homeowners association in the country actually is located in Elko Spring Creek. There are a number of noxious weeds in that area, so we actually mailed nearly 5,500 noxious weeds books to talk about what those issues are and to help with some self-identifying some of those populations that will help with, again, targeting, engaging owners to address some of these issues and to help us flag where they are and allocate resources where we can. I think I'm nearly there. Okay, I will stop my updates here, but the last thing I'll mention is something kind of exciting to see is the California Invasive Plant Council and Plant Rights reached out to Nevada to participate in their plant risk assessment tool. And what that means is they're looking at ornamental and horticultural crops that have the potential to become invasive. So this is, again, one of those proactive efforts to assess what we're seeing coming into the state and preventing them from becoming noxious species so that we can inhibit their distribution, flag whether they are a concern early on before they start becoming widely established. So something kind of exciting to see on a proactive level. I know the last part of your board report has a pretty big update on chloropyrifos. I know I didn't say that right, but you could see it being banned in food and animal and human food products for use. This is being litigated, so there's been push from EPA to have companies voluntarily remove these products from the shelf, but there are a lot of different processes that are underway on that, and we tried to outline what's happening, what agency or what distributors would need to do, and all of this at this point in time is voluntary until EPA comes out with a final stance. So there's a lot of information on this, but if you're aware of folks that will impact, it's helpful information. And our pesticide program coordinator really tried to lay it out fairly clear on what we're seeing at this point in time. So we'll give you an update on our next board report if we see any changes on that where it's being forced or enforced. And we'll give you an update on that. With that, I'll stop talking and conclude my presentation.
So, just because I'm behind on the, what is this, what is coral, what is it used in? From the layman's term, is this like 2,4-D?
I don't know the specific.
It's lower span, right?
I honestly, I can't, for the record, Ashley Jepson, I don't have a list of products. I mean, we've already pulled it. We can easily provide that of the products it would impact. But yeah, they're approved for use on food and animal feed at this point in time, those types of crops. But I'm happy to provide that if it helps.
Must have worked too good. They want to be
Chlorpyrifos.
Yeah, I can see you're just like, no, we just say it.
Yeah, just everybody knows.
I should have practiced that before I came here.
And Ashley, I have a question. You know, the Spring Creek Homeowners Association basically could act like a county because they have in their budget, I'm sure they charge each homeowner a portion share of that homeowner association fee. And couldn't you go right to them and say, you know, correct these problems and then have them assess their homeowners in the association? Wouldn't that be the easiest way instead of going to the county?
For the record, Ashley Jepson, so that is one of our goals, is when we can work with these homeowners associations and get them engaged. So some of them we've actually tried to do outreach through Nextdoor, which has a number of homeowner associations. So some of them are more willing to participate than others. You really have to have that willingness. And thus far, they've been highly cooperative in sending out information, trying to get folks to address these issues. At this point in time, there's no legal authority or requirement for them to enforce, but if we can get them to voluntarily, absolutely a much easier approach than the county. And we're trying.
Yeah. Seems that that'd be the easiest way.
Yeah,
For if they'd accept it.
and set the expectation that you are going to do
Right.
this, absolutely, yeah.
Back on the produce inspection, I didn't see onions mentioned. Is that because you're all up to
Yeah.
speed on?
Yeah, because we're already credentialed in that area,
Okay.
but that will be part of our outreach, for folks that don't know, we do that.
Okay. Very
Good
good.
question, sorry.
Any other questions for Ashley? Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, we're gonna move to agenda item number 11, food and nutrition.
Good morning, Homa Anushakur, Administrator for Division of Food and Nutrition. I start with a matter of significance and waivers from USDA that they released the Food and Nutrition Program released a checklist for summer and school year, and it includes 24 waivers, and for child National School Lunch Program, child and adult care food programs, and summer food service program, and we elected all 24 waivers. For the summer food, we also submitted a waiver for non-congregate food service for times when they may be excessive smoke or heat, and we are waiting for approval for that. Waiver. With our food distribution team, the total volume of the food that we offer through our emergency assistance programs is expected to decline for the upcoming year, as you know, the supplemental funding sources like CARES funds and Family First Coronavirus Response Act funds expire. And also we hear the report from our partners that there is a decrease in food donation, and these together may result in low inventory for our 2 food banks. The USDA currently provided additional food through our emergency food assistance program through Section 32 bonus purchases, and we already sent the trucks to the 2 food banks. About 6 trucks already have been sent to, the last week has been sent to them, and that can help them, but we just know that the inventory is going to be lower than what has been in the last 2 years. Our partnership activities, they are ongoing. I talked to you about them in previous meeting, and we are continuing to work with the Division of Welfare and Supportive Services and Nevada Department of Education for the school year 21-22 pandemic electronic benefit transfer, which plan was approved earlier this month and has been extended through November. We also continue to assist the Division of Public Behavioral Health with their obesity prevention plan that focuses on obesity prevention and promoting obesity prevention behaviors, including healthy eating and physical activities for children from birth to 8 years old. And the same kind of partnership is continuing with Southern Nevada Obesity Prevention Coalition to reduce obesity. So, with our food distribution program update, with our food distribution, our emergency food assistance program clients continue to receive food and have access to food through the Food Bank of Northern Nevada and G Square. And I listed the number of individuals that are served, but on average, we are providing access to food to 132,000 individuals a month. Our commodity supplemental food program that Director Rao talked about, the rebranding, that's a program that provides a monthly food package to income eligible seniors 68 of age and older. And we have 3 partners. There is a Food Bank of Northern Nevada, Fish in Elko, and also the Just One project in Las Vegas that came on board in November, and they're working on increasing participation each month. our senior farmers market program, we began distribution of coupon in the southern Nevada, 2,400 booklet coupon, which value of $108,000 has been distributed to our partners that that they are going to distribute it to our seniors, and for northern Nevada, we are going to start senior farmers market pickup on first week of July. And we have currently 44 farmers that are certified to and farm stands, and there are 19 of them in the process of certification. For our school nutrition program, the administrative and procurement review has been completed for this school year, so we are on schedule for that. And as all the needs that were served were free this year for the schools, and we are hoping that as they are mentioned to be approved by IFC, so we are going to continue one more year of free breakfast and lunch for our schools age children. And I also listed to date that we have served 30 million lunches, over 16 million breakfast, 200,000 snacks, and 33,000 meals. For our community nutrition program, which includes child and adult care food program and summer food service program, we have completed 19 administrative reviews, and we have served 4 million meals through our child and adult care food programs, and over 1 million through summer food service program. This concludes my report. Question?
That's a lot. You and your team are very busy. That's pretty remarkable.
You're busy, but it's very gratifying.
Absolutely. Does the board have any questions for Owen?
Can I make a numbers comment?
Absolutely good.
So yesterday I was at an event for the Food Bank of Northern Nevada. And I was told by the CEO there that, so if you see these TFAP numbers on page 2, that the average is 132,000 individuals served per month. That's just the TFAP program. The CEO of the food bank told me that they're seeing pandemic level numbers right now as far as food bank programs, that last month they had 123,000 individuals come to the food bank across all of their services. And that's just completely remarkable, because if Washoe County only has 470,000 people in it. So this is the type of need that's out there. I just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. We're gonna go to agenda item number 12. Administrative services.
Hi, good morning. Jerry Conrad, Deputy Director for the record. You all have had a chance, I think, to review the administrative services update. I will touch on a few points, but please let me know if you have any questions. We launched the Food and Ag photo contest. Folks who enter are eligible for prizes and may be able to be featured in or used in NDA promotions. And I'm just mentioning that. So if you haven't had a chance already, perhaps you could share with your friends and family. This is our second year, and we're looking forward to seeing what folks submit. We've had a good response to the Nevada Craft Beverage Passport Program, and we've actually awarded a few prizes so far for completion of the passports. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to use yours yet, but lots of places are, I would say we get the feedback of participants are business who participate are well aware of the program, and they speak highly of the folks who have come in and been excited about trying craft beverages in Nevada. So also, I'm sure you're aware of the indoor and outdoor crop surveys that are live on our website right now. If you haven't had a chance, if you could please share with your peers. There important information being requested there. I want to point out that there's no identifying information being collected, and the participants will be providing data that isn't currently being collected, which is one of the reasons that we're really eager to get as many folks to participate as possible. The data will be used in general to support Nevada agriculture, including seeking funding opportunities and insight into resources that the resource needs for Nevada ag. The deadline for those surveys is July 1st, 2022. Comms, you'll see lots of news links here, including information on protecting against bird flu, on American Rescue Plan Act funding, cricket and grasshopper information. Staff has also been busy assisting divisions with public notices of workshops, including the livestock fee changes. And staff is also continuing to work on fielding public records requests, which are, as you know, are always ongoing. And then lastly, the Nevada Women's Farm to Food Business Accelerator concluded in March, and participants reported feeling more prepared for the next steps with their products, and they would recommend the program to others. And Amber is in the process of putting together the next program launch. So any questions for me?
Thanks, Sherry. I appreciate it. We see a lot of social media, I personally do, out there really get information out. So good job on that. And I guess we had a professional player, football player, kind of promote the food program. So I won't mention specifics. So, but great job getting out there and informing people in the industry. So.
Well, thank you so much. The staff works really hard to keep, to try to keep folks aware of the services we provide and where people can get assistance. Thank you.
Any other questions for Jerry? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We said the last for best. Here we go. 13 measurements and standards. Go ahead, Cadence.
I am gonna try to make this chair.
I know that you can switch up.
No, it's not gonna work. Yeah, I'm too short for this little chair.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, that's
I need a booster.
seat. If you're like me though, if it's too high.
My feet won't be dangling. I wanna be. Sorry. Thank you for indulging me on that. For the record, Cadence Matievich, Administrator for the Division of Measurement Standards. Like my colleagues, you have the full report for our division. I'll just call out a couple of items, beginning with an ongoing item that we discussed at the last board meeting. And I had been hopeful that we would be able to report to you at this meeting that we had reached a definitive conclusion as to what is causing the issue with diesel filter dispenser clogging. Unfortunately, that is not the case. The analysis that's been performed to date remains inconclusive as to the cause. We do think that it has ruled out some potential causes, but we have not yet been able to definitively point to one thing or a combination of things that we know is causing the issue. We did get a report back from Kinder Morgan, the pipeline operator here in the northern part of our state, in April, and again, that report did not identify the cause. That report did indicate that it was that producer of the report believed that it eliminated some possibilities. We were not, frankly, not satisfied with the information that was presented to us in that report to reach that conclusion. And so in discussion with Kinder Morgan, we reached agreement with them that some additional analysis relative to one cause that has been suggested and a couple of other analyses as a potential cause. And Kinder Morgan is still today in the process of trying to contract for a third-party lab to conduct that analysis. They had hoped to be entered into a contract with a nonprofit research laboratory to do that, but unfortunately have not been able to come to contract terms with them. And so they are looking for an additional third-party laboratory to conduct that additional analysis. Laboratories too are not immune from the staffing challenges, and so that laboratory of choice just was not able to take on the workload in the timeline that we felt like was going to be necessary to get the results. So we continue to work with Kinder Morgan on that. We continue to express to them that while we are in the summer months and we're not currently seeing the problem, we have a short window to get this resolved before we get into cold temperatures again. And so we'll continue to work with them on that. It's also noted there, interestingly, in late April, we learned from our colleagues at the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship that they are experiencing a very similar issue in their state, and they too have not been able to conclusively confirm what the cause of that is. And so Dr. Strajewski is in touch with staff there, and we will certainly be sharing information between the two agencies, and hopefully, you know, not glad that they're experiencing the problem, but good to know that perhaps there's some additional analysis that may help inform the issue here in our state as well. And I will say again, as I did last month, we recognize and acknowledge that this is a hardship on the industry, and we will continue to work with Kinder Morgan to try to get an answer to this as soon as possible. So I don't know if you want me to pause there, Mr. Chair, and take any questions on that specific issue.
Yeah, let's do that. Do you guys have any questions in particular on this matter?
So is this a pipeline issue, or is this a wholesale to retail?
So the issue, I don't want to definitively say that's a pipeline issue. The issue has been identified as being widespread in the supply chain, which is supplied by the Kinder Morgan pipeline, which ends at the Sparks terminal. So it's not a single customer. It's not a, you know, it is widespread throughout their customer base, both retailers, wholesalers, mining operations. It's seen across the board, and so there is something causing that fuel in the winter months to. And Bill may have to help me out with the right scientific term here, but maybe the better term is not the scientific term, is that it begins to congeal and build up on the filters. There are a number of hypotheses as to what's causing that. Is it something in the fuel coming from the refineries? Is it something that's being in the additives that are being added to it? You know, be it from the various fuel providers, their proprietary blends, if you will, their additives. Is it additives for winterizing? Is it additives that may be added to the pipeline to help reduce drag in the pipeline so that delivery is faster? Could be any number of those things, individually or in combination. The fact that Iowa was having the problem is really very interesting to us, because we had thought that potentially it had to do with the particular fuel that we receive here in northern Nevada. Diesel comes from California, and it's formulated to California Air Resource Board specifications, also known as CARB fuel, even though it's not specifically identified on documentation when it's delivered here, it's just EPA compliant fuel. It is that same fuel. And so we thought, well, maybe there's something different about, you know, that fuel, but they don't sell CARB fuel in Iowa. So that's an interesting thing to us, and we haven't completely ruled out that it is something specific to CARB fuel that may be causing the issue. But so I'm afraid I can't give you a yes or no answer. Is it a pipeline issue? But what I can say is that the source of the fuel is the Sparks terminal. There are some retailers and wholesalers that during the peak winter months when the problem was at its worst, sourced fuel from outside of the state, and immediately the problem went away. And so we have, you know, I'm confident in saying that we've identified that the source of the problem is fuel distributed from the Sparks terminal. But what the cause of the problem is, we do not yet know.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. I'll continue just a couple of other quick points on the items in my board report. Ashley and I are in a little bit of a competition to see who can have how many hearings in a week. So we too, our division is also busy with administrative rulemaking. We did hold a hearing for adoption yesterday for changes to Nevada Administrative Code Chapter 590, establishing civil penalties for violations of the Nevada Petroleum Products Inspection Act. Written comment on that proposed regulation is due today. And certainly if we receive any, we have not received any written comment. We didn't get any comments at yesterday's hearing that would lead us to believe that we won't be able to move forward with adopting that and forwarding that to the Legislative Commission for approval of an upcoming meeting. Later today, later in this meeting, you will have a hearing for additional changes to NAC 590 for file RO3721. For file RO3821, which pertains to E15 fuel, you may have noticed that we had originally noticed that for hearing for adoption today. But following some discussion with industry stakeholders, we have pulled that off for today. It actually never been a major agenda because we made the decision before that, but we had posted the hearing notice. We think that it's prudent to look at that language again, particularly in light of some of the recent emergency waivers that have been granted by the EPA relative to use of E15 in the summertime months. When we drafted these regulations, it was quite some time ago, and we had, I think I could say we had reached some compromise, if you will, on the way that we were going to reference federal regulations pertaining to E15 in our regulations. But we're afraid that we may have some unintended consequences that might not allow us to take care of emergency waivers in a circumstance like we're in right now. And so we just think that a little more time to be sure that we've done our diligence there and looked at how we have that language drafted to best position us to be able to take advantage of those waiver situations in the future if we were to need to. And so we're working on revising that language, and we'll hold at least one more workshop this summer with the goal being to hopefully bring back an updated draft to you for adoption at your meeting in September. And then next week, we'll be having a workshop for changes to Nevada Administrative Code Chapter 581 pertaining to cannabis weighing and measuring equipment. The program updates there, I won't spend a lot of time on those, other just to say that, you know, the inflationary pressures that businesses and consumers are feeling. We are seeing an uptick in consumer complaints relevant to price accuracy, both for motor vehicle fuel and for general retail, particularly at big box retailers. And so our inspectors are quite busy going out and conducting investigations of those and In some cases, we find them to be valid, and in other cases, we don't find them to be valid. But we endeavor to respond and initiate an investigation within 48 hours of receiving those complaints. So that we're out in the field, 48 business hours, I should say, that we are out in the field and looking to find those circumstances where they are valid and be sure that there are corrections made. And in fact, this is the first time in our report that we've actually started breaking out fuel price accuracy consumer complaints. It's not something we saw a lot of before. Over $6 a gallon. Folks are really paying. Huh?
Where do you get your gas? I just passed Maverick on the way to the meeting. It was $5.99.
Yeah, at the corner of Kidsky and Mill there, 3 different stations in that little corner there. If you're buying regular gasoline with a credit card, it's over $6.
Did you
Anecdotally,
answer the question though? Where do you?
I think it might be a conflict of interest for me to reveal where I purchase my own gas. I'll refrain from answering that.
Top secret, they have to kill you.
I will say, it won't make anybody feel any better, but anecdotally, just this last week, there's a listserv of all the people that sit in my seat in all of the 50 states. And the question was posed of, has anybody figured out what we do if the price goes over $9.99, because the price signs only have three digits there, and the folks in California were the first to say, yeah, we're trying to figure that out. So yeah, it's,
Best way to figure it out to make it come back.
You moved the decimal point. You're right.
Yeah.
There's a solution to that. We have oil and gas right here in the state of Nevada. We even have refineries. The problem that we have is the federal government controls it. State ever has the courage, step up to the plate, take back the federal lands that belong to the states, and run their own natural resources, we wouldn't have this problem.
One last quick note, we did begin our annual livestock scale inspections this week. So many of you may have individually received our letter letting you know what the general schedule is, and then you'll get individualized letter with your week. If you would, I have an ask as you go back out into your communities, your folks that ranch and farm and produce around you, please ask them to pay attention to that letter more than ever this year. It's really important that the scales be ready and accessible when they're scheduled. Our ability to come back because the scale wasn't ready is going to be very limited this year due to staffing constraints, fuel costs, those kinds of things. We will endeavor in all of the cases where we can, when we need to come back to an area, to schedule them at the same time so that those costs can be shared amongst anybody needing a re-inspection or a rescheduled inspection. But we are not in a staffing position to where if someone misses their inspection, the gate's locked, and we can't get there, that we'll be able to come back the next week. It will likely be months before we can make it back. So any help you can give us in getting that word out would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
And that concludes my board update items, and I'm pleased to take any questions on the items in the report.
Anybody out there? Nope. All right, let's open this up. Let's get the hearing going.
All right. So for the next item, I am going to let Dr. Strajewski.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For the record, my name is Bill Strajewski, and I am the Senior Petroleum Chemist for the Division of Measurement Standards. Good morning. Mr. Chair, board members, meeting attendees. I thank you for the opportunity to hold this hearing during the scheduled Board of Agriculture meeting. By my phone, it is 11:20 a.m. on Wednesday, June 8th, 2022. And this is the public hearing for the adoption of regulations to amend Chapter 590 of the Nevada Administrative Code, or NAC. These regulations have been assigned file number R037-21 by the Nevada Legislative Council Bureau. This public hearing is being held both in person and virtually via Zoom for all who are interested, and this hearing has been properly noticed and is being recorded as required by Nevada open meeting law. I'd like to take a few minutes to quickly review the rulemaking process. You have some background on the steps that have been completed and what our next steps will be following this. As a first step, the NDA reviewed the existing NAC language, updating sections due to the passage of Assembly Bill 31 by the 81st session of the Nevada Legislature. Including in AB 31 were the granting of authority for the department to regulate diesel emission fluid, or DEF, and some petroleum heating products, transfer of authority for aviation fuels from the state sealer to the State Board of Agriculture, and cleanup of NAC Chapter 590, such as updating the prices for the purchase of documents from organizations other than the NDA. The draft that we are reviewing in this hearing is the most updated version of those proposed changes. The department then distributed a small business impact survey for industry input. That information was compiled and a statement was included with the workshop notice for LCB file R037-21. A workshop was held on March 15th of this year to review the proposed changes and receive public comment to help shape the final proposed language. There were no comments submitted before, during, or following the workshop. This scheduled hearing and intent to adopt proposed regulations is the next step in the rulemaking process. The draft coming out of this hearing is then adopted, I hope, by the Nevada Board of Agriculture and submitted for review and approval by the Legislative Commission. After approval by the Commission or the subcommittee to review regulations, the Legislative Council Bureau will file the regulation with the Secretary of State, and this is the point where the adopted regulation becomes effective. Amber, could you post the agenda, please? So the agenda that we'd like to follow for this hearing, you'll see that we will start with a period of open comment for anyone wishing to speak on concerns or provide input. I realize that there's comment periods for the rest of the board meetings. So what we're looking for is comments or concern purely on file R037-21. This time is meant to collect your statements and feedback. I will not respond to the comments provided during this time. So I invite you to please hold your questions until a point further in the agenda, and to please limit your comments to 3 minutes to ensure everyone has a chance to be heard. Following the open comment, I will review the proposed changes to NAC 590. You have a copy of the file in your packet, but there are quite a number of sections to it, and it'll be valuable just to review those briefly. Followed by time for questions. I'll be happy to answer questions from the board and others and offer any clarification that's necessary. After questions, there will be another period for additional public comment on the proposed changes, and following that, I would adjourn my portion of the hearing. At this time, with your approval, Mr. Chair, I'd like to open the floor for public comment on LCB file number R037-21.
Absolutely, it's open for public comment.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody have public comment on this? Awesome. Out there, Amber? It's crickets.
Anybody in Vegas?
Anybody in Vegas? Nothing?
No one here.
We hear you, hear you. All right, good to go. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'll close the public comment. The department is proposing changes and additions to NAC Chapter 590. These regulation changes are necessary to incorporate into Chapter 590 the contents of Assembly Bill 31 as enacted by the 81st session of the Nevada Legislature in 2021. At this time, I'd like to review the proposed changes and additions. I will note at this time again that the NDA received no public comment on this file before, during, or following the March 15th, 2022 workshop that was held on these regulations. LCB file number R037-21 establishes new sections within NAC 590, adopting by regulation certain specification standards for DEF and for petroleum heating products, and also includes a number of other changes. Now, I'd like to just make a comment. Section 2 establishes a new section adopting by regulation certain specification standards for DEF. The reason why we're taking this action, DEF, diesel emission fluid, is an ever more important part of the emission programs for modern diesel engines. And as such, we believe that it is a material that is worth ensuring that the public is getting the proper product for the safety of their vehicle. However, DEF is not a petroleum product, and as such, it does not fall under the authority we have with the Nevada Petroleum Products Inspection Act. And so we asked to have our authority expanded to allow for regulating DEF. Section 3 of the file establishes a new section adopting by regulation certain specifications for petroleum heating fluid, heating products. That's fairly self-explanatory. Now, we have a shopping list of different sections wherein we are updating prices. I'm trying to group these as efficiently as possible. So for sections 4 through 8 and section 10, we are updating the purchase price for standard specifications for purchase from ASTM International of products that we already regulate for the following regulated products. Section 4 in NAC 590.050 updates diesel fuel. Section 5, NAC 590.051 updates biodiesel fuel blend stock or B100, biodiesel blends ranging from B6 to B20, and again, diesel fuel, that's in that section a second time because it's part of the blending of biodiesel blends. Section 6, NAC 590.052 updates methanol fuel blends. Section 7, NAC 590.053 updates ethanol fuel blends. Section 8, NAC 590.054 updates the chemical composition of gases. And section 10, NAC 590.065 updates spark ignition engine fuel or gasoline. Section 9 in NAC 590.055 adopts by reference certain specification standards for regulation of aviation gasoline and aviation turbine fuels or jet fuel. And this again came from a certain part of Assembly Bill 31. Historically, aviation fuels had fallen under the authority of the state sealer, while most everything else fell under authority of the board. We're not really sure why that was, but you know, when we would come forward with the need to update sections of NAC 590, including something as trivial as updating the prices for the documents, we would have to prepare 2 separate files and have 2 separate hearings, one for the state sealer and one for the Board of Agriculture. So this corrects that and puts everything underneath the board's authority. And then finally, section 11, NAC 590.050 just amends the text to reflect the changes made in Assembly Bill 31 by the Nevada legislature. That completes my review, and I'd now be happy to take any questions regarding the proposed changes.
Do you have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So what it refers to petroleum heating products, is that like stuff that's put into to make it burn hotter? Or what are you referencing there?
Kerosene, heating oil.
Oh, say.
Home heating.
So it's like a home heating oil.
Correct, yes.
So it refers that to DEF, and my question, that even when I read through that before, was most homes and heating oils don't have catalytic converters.
No, that is correct.
And so
That's correct.
DEF is really, for your heating oils, is really that type of, you're wasting your time there, because all DEF does is it's actually injected into your catalytic converters to burn the soot out of your catalytic converter.
Yes, sir. So Assembly Bill 31, excuse me, Bill Strajewski through the chair to.
You're good. No problem.
I'm trying to. So Assembly Bill 31 was, I guess, what you would call an omnibus bill, updating and cleaning up a lot of different things in NAP 590. And so, yeah, I would not think of, the DEF and the heating product sections at all together. Section 2 was just to give us authority to regulate DEF, yes, in
To set a
vehicles,
standard for it, so you can't get.
or to go by the standards that
Somebody
have
don't
been
give you a whole
set.
bunch of water. to
Correct, or too much urea, yes, which is not going to be good either. And then section 3 is quite different from that and is dealing with home heating.
Yeah, there's a question, the next question.
Yes, you don't want to be putting heating oil
Yeah.
into your
The
diesel.
next
no.
question that popped into my head is like, a lot of our public buildings, schools and that are heated with heating oils for boilers. I mean, all of a sudden you're gonna make them put catalytic converters on there. I'm like, there's a lot of things went through my head.
No, sir. No, sir. Not our intent at all.
Okay.
Any other questions out there, Vegas? Oh.
All right. At this time, I'd like to thank the board members, the public, and the industry representatives for their participation in the process. We value the relationship that we have with all of those that we serve. I was grateful to be able to make that clarification for you, sir. We'll now move into the second public comment for anyone wishing to make a statement for the record or any consideration.
We have to go for a public comment.
My
Yes.
apologies.
I'm just standing and they're gonna make
I know.
public comment. Well, it's my turn.
We need to make a motion before we have public comment on the last one. So is there a motion up there to adopt this LCD?
I'll make the motion.
To propose the regulation at LCD file R037-21P, correct?
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a first and a second. Is there any more discussion? Board? No discussion? Any discussion out there, Vegas? All right.
No.
All those in. Was that a yes or a no?
Yes.
State your name, please.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Wrong question. We have no other answer.
Thank you, appreciate it out there. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. All right, it's a move. Thank you very much. It's adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, now we will move into public comment for anyone wishing to make a statement for the record.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
We have one public comment right here behind you. If you would stand and face him.
I have to pull up the appropriate chair.
Yeah.
Still good morning, Peter
Good morning.
Kruger, representing the Nevada Petroleum Marketers Convenience Store Association. We're in support of the file. We have been working with the department on this proposed regulation. And I want to stress the importance, as not only your fuel costs, my fuel costs are increasing. DEF is one of those products that because of cost, because of its demand, and can entice bad actors. And we think that this file and ultimately regulation will give the board the authority and the department to regulate and be sure that it's on spec. Those of you that have fleet of trucks know that without DEF, your engine doesn't run, diesel engine doesn't run. So we're in complete support of the file. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Any other public comment?
All right. I'd like to thank you all for your participation. We'll take the comments from today under consideration, along with any written comments that may be received by the close of business today. Following today's hearing, we will, well, I guess the board has just taken action to adopt the proposed regulations, but we will submit for review and approval by the Legislative Commission. I'd like to thank you for allowing me the time to make this presentation and to hold this hearing. I guess I'm not sure that I really can adjourn the hearing, but
yes, I'll adjourn the hearing.
All right. My work is complete as of 11:37 a.m.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, board. I appreciate it. Now we have for answer any public comment for the board.
I got a public comment.
Floor's yours.
Of course I do. Hey, here's a prime example of government at its finest. With DEF and the emissions and global warming and all that, you create a department that doesn't really exist because diesel does not put out carbon monoxide. It puts out carbon dioxide, which is breathable. What it puts out is soot. And so you created a problem that doesn't really exist, and then you charge everybody in the industry. California has just destroyed their trucking industry because of the emissions problem that doesn't exist. And then everybody else has to pay to fix it. Just a philosophical point.
Thank you, Brian. Any other public comment out there?
How about a real member of the public? Okay,
go ahead.
I wasn't sure how you.
Yeah, you're good.
So I'm
public. You're good.
So once again, Peter Kruger, Nevada Petroleum Marketers. I wanted to address the diesel filter problem that Ms. Vitievich addressed in her comments. 120 days roughly is what we've got before it gets cool again. This program or this problem has been going on for, depending on whose calendar you look at. I have members that think it's 4 years. In rural Nevada, I've got people who 3 years, but I know the department I can agree it's at least 2 years. So there's no, in our mind, industry's mind, and I think I understand the tightrope that the department has to walk in this issue. We're up against a $2.5 billion company, another Kinder Morgan, that has a monopoly in delivering more than 95% of all the petroleum product in Nevada, Southern Nevada and Northern Nevada. Now, it's fine to say and give them more time. That's all they've asked for. I would disagree that I think there are 2 independent studies, one engaged by this department many months ago, and a second one engaged a separate laboratory on behalf of a mining company, which has been, mining has been really hard to get on this particular problem. Both identified one particular product in what's called DRA, a drag releasing agent. That's the agent that is used pretty much by the pipeline company to move product up the pipeline in northern Nevada. As you know, I think our pipeline starts down in Richmond, California at the Chevron refinery, goes through Martinez, comes up through Sacramento, and at about Roseville and Colfax, 2 huge pumping stations to pump it over to Sierra. More and more of this, my understanding is DRA is introduced into the pipeline. So I believe that there are 2 separate independent studies, analysis, I should say, that have indicated that a product called Steramide is the likely culprit for the clogging of diesel filters. Now, maybe some of you have seen it. I deal with people, as the department does, in rural Nevada that have had nothing but headaches and costs. Our members are never, my members are the wholesalers, are never going to recover their costs to the mines. Mine filters compared to a dispenser filter are 3 and 4 times the cost. So I'm just here to say I appreciate and understand the legalities of all that a state agency has to put up with. And I'm supportive of that. But at some point, with 120 days or less to go, we've got to have an answer. This is an unregulated monopoly, at least in the state of Nevada. They are regulated by the federal pipeline folks. But nevertheless, I'm just here to ask that the department continue to do everything it can. And I think that the record will show that the department has, in my terms, bent over backwards and given the benefit of the doubt to this particular private company, short of issuing notices of violation, stopping. The problem is, what I appreciate, their hands are tied. What do? They say, okay, no more fuel. Well, then who pays the price? The customer pays the price. So that obviously is not going to work. But I'm just here to ask and hope that before we get to late September, October, which is not far away, that we have resolution to this problem. I can tell this board, and the department knows this, that one of my members in particular brought fuel by rail from Canada and Salt Lake. It wasn't Kinder Morgan's product, didn't come through their pipeline. There was no reported cases of diesel fuel filter clogging in that product. So once again, it's lunchtime and all, but just please, Director, continue the good work. And I think at some point enough's enough, and we've got to resolve the problem. Yes, sir.
Hey, Peter, I just wanted to ask you a question. This DRA anti-drag agent, does Kinder Morgan inject that, or who makes that decision to put it in at Roseville, or
can we not discuss on that? Thank you, appreciate it.
My closing comments are that the pipeline company injects a DRA product. Just a thought I had at the end here. Injects DRA and at least in 2 locations, Roseville and Colfax. That's my comments.
Thank you for your comment. Appreciate it. Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, public comment is closed. Thank you, everybody, for coming. It was a good meeting. Looking forward to the next one, and good luck out there. Hopefully we get some rain, all kinds of fun stuff out there. Gas prices go down. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. We adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all the trees. Double adjournment, Mr. Chair? I think so. Okay. Adjournment of adjournment. Of the hearing and adjournment of the meeting. Yes.
Motion to close the hearing.
What's that?
I say, when you do a hearing, you need to open the hearing with a motion that's closed.
I'm trying
to.
Maybe we should, General Richard, and maybe we should form a motion to close the meeting.
Sorry, the dad is saying.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, if someone just could move and second and then adjourn. the
Okay,
meeting.
gotcha. So would, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
There's a first and a second. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. It's so moved. We will adjourn. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it.
Awesome, thank you so much.
All right.
Richard's rules of order.
I know, right?
That's right, I heard that.
Hot mics, hot-
When did you learn about
Perfect.
that? That's the first I heard about this.
I got a question.